So I figured we would just kind of do bullet points, fly through a few things, just things we're seeing
Sure.
in the market, quick little talks, maybe ETH ETF, things like that. The Solana ETF, it looks like there's some talk in the wind about that. So we'll touch on just a few things, chop it up, and get something good out of it. With that being said, let's start with the Solana ETF. I know you and I don't play heavy in Solana too much. I don't think you do. I saw that there was some chitter chatter about a Solana ETF.
Yeah.
Now, where I find this interesting, why are they pushing that so soon behind the Ethereum filings when the Ethereum filings, to my understanding of this subject, is still waiting on the final S1 clearance, which allows it to like actively be traded like an ETF.
Right.
So I'm kind of wondering your thoughts, or if you have any, on maybe why this is happening, why they're pushing something like this. And do you think that this is just kind of the beginning of what we're seeing for them starting to push these majors where we were alluding to from yesterday's conversation or the day before?
I'm not sure it matters. I think professional organizations and institutions, they just do things. They somewhat have an agenda, but when you really kind of step back and think about it, for this stuff, it's all so new and it's so kind of novel for them. I don't really think there's a big agenda prior to them getting these things launched. And maybe they want to have control over it to a degree and buy up supply, and then they want to run algos on it and, kind of have their way with it. But in the beginning, I think it's just about getting it done. I think there's more. There might be some, of course, there's secondary things that they want to have, go along with it. But primarily, I think legal pushes them, and they have timelines and this and that, and they all have these massive legal departments. So there's no way that they can just sit back and say, oh, we're going to fuck with it this way and fuck with it that way, because attorneys are involved in filing all this stuff with the SEC. So I think it's just a matter of getting it done. And I know these lawyers and getting this stuff done is very, very costly too. So I'm not sure there's an agenda there, man. There could be. I think people can game it from the inside and, this and that. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
I think, from at least my view, I think it's pretty bullish. It's never as easy as this is it. This is the up only for us. I really don't, I won't never believe that. The timing of it for me is a little bizarre. I figured they would have let ETH do its thing. And unless there is an underlying motive there for them really trying to, and this is more conspiracy side of it, but maybe suppress the price of ETH a little bit before it gets institutionalized. So they're
Yeah.
not putting as much of a radical focus on the ETH ETF. Now they're kind of maybe diluting that excitement or diluting retail excitement there. But that's kind of how I look at it, because I see it as these kinds of conversations we're having now about ETFs and things, they weren't a viable conversation to have until Bitcoin ETF actually got pushed through, and
Yeah.
there shows to be institutional demand. So I think that maybe what we're having here is finally some real institutional interest in
Right.
coins other than Bitcoin, which leads me to get really excited for the rest of the market. But it still doesn't have me convinced that we're getting the rising tides lift
It
all.
will come eventually. I think that, so that game for us, we're in a much bigger hurry than them. The reason I think all these ETFs are happening, and it's not because they're not legitimate, it's not because they're not great technology, it's not because they can't be used. That's all true. They definitely can. But the reason they're all occurring in one way is because the industry is so inflated, it's so humongous. The market capitalization of all the stocks and commodities and everything combined, and real estate, they need something else to rotate into. Yeah, they do, and they're gonna set this casino up. They're having a new exchange in Texas eventually. I'm not sure what that's 24/7. That'll have crypto or not, but they need another sector to rotate through to keep the game going, to keep everything going. Because let's face it, you can talk these things just like in 2008. You can get anything, any label you want, any kind of rating you want, right? If you're Wall Street or if you're these institutions, you can market it how you want. You can sell people it like any way you want. You can make it look better than stocks eventually if you wanted to, right? Doesn't matter if it is or isn't. It can be done. So I think it's another sector that eventually will be big enough to rotate into to a degree. And they have to have a plan for it to be adopted and integrated with regular corporations too. Not all of it, but there's no way they're going to back this kind of money into it and these regulations and the legal fees that are involved, and they're putting their reputation on the line if they're not going to be, if they don't have some sort of a plan to integrate it within some sort of institution or corporation down the road, right? Solana is not going to be, I would be surprised. I'm sure some will fail, but I'd be surprised if they're all just in 10 years used for shitcoining. I really would be. The other issue is, an issue, but speculation is, if it were me, it'd be great to release a Sol ETF right now. Everyone knows Solana is kind of, a lot of people want to talk about speed and fees, but in our space, I don't remember ever giving a fuck. You just pay what you have to pay. I don't remember ever giving a fuck. And that was when I was broke too. It's okay, well, wait till the gas prices come down. It all worked out. It did. You got your entries. You got everything worked out. Another idea is, maybe they did this so the focus would shift from Ethereum. So, maybe people, they could get it, buy up more of it at a lower level. But to me, that seems kind of out there too, because they know way before, probably a year ago or better, that this is going to happen. They know. These guys, I don't care if you're at the SEC or if you're at BlackRock, you know each other, you have meetings prior that are off the books, you understand. A lot of people say, oh, they're going to get in lower. Are you fucking high? Come on. And that kind of saying drives me crazy, because
those are the people that are trying to, in our last, trying to turn the $100 into the $1 million plays. And they're not thinking with logic that somebody that has $5 million and is able to 5x it in a clean way, they're not thinking that way. They're broke. They don't have that understanding.
They're way ahead of us. They're way ahead of me. They're way ahead of you. And that's okay. That's great. I'm happy we can still play the game. If we wanted to go that way, you get a finance degree at some Ivy League institution and, whatever. I have this, for instance, you want to talk about who these guys are. I have this commodity company, this exotic commodity company that I have managing some money of mine, and they're called Sprott Global. And the guy that manages my money, the money I have at the commodities, he's a geologist, but he's a financial geologist, meaning he flies all over the world to check out nickel, silicon mines, everything. He understands it all. He speaks like 7 different fucking languages, okay? And that is his job. And he has these advanced degrees from all these places all over all over the world, in fact. But he lives here in America now, and that's what they do. So when people say that these guys don't know what's going on and they need to price go, they do not need the fucking price to go lower. They're in. They got it, man. They bought up the supply. Remember when ETH was like $1,000 last year? Or was it 18 months ago? I can't remember. I thought we'd get another shot at that low. We didn't.
I was expecting maybe a tag of like 800 or I think it was 1,200. And it dropped close.
All these fucking CTs, and even back then, I was somewhat susceptible to what they said. Hey, we're going to go lower. We're going to go lower. And you get sucked into that loop because that's all you're feeding yourself. You're just sitting there absorbing this material instead of fucking making your own.
In all fairness, there was a lot of shit going on at that time.
There
was a lot of things.
But when you step back below 800, what was that? Just at 4,500?
It is one of those things that when I look back on it, I look back and say, it is really interesting to see how crypto reacted to a lot of the different events that was thrown its way over the last 2 to 3 years during the bear market. When we should have been averaging more, around the time you're talking about, there was just a lot of global things happening, a lot of real uncertainty in all markets. So, we're over here thinking, at least I am, oh shit, maybe I need to keep that padding back there instead of deploying that at just the most opportune times. And It goes back to the age-old saying of the buying the fear and selling the greed, and you got to really buy it when it just seems like it is gonna just absolute apocalyptic ends.
It really makes you sick. Nobody's buying on the timeline. If you see 0 people buying on the timeline, which is the best place to get in, and you didn't even see that when we were just dipping back, again to 58. You didn't see that. You see a ton of people. This is my plan. I plan for it to see 58. You want to see nobody planning for that. And one other thing I want to talk about too with Solana ETF, a lot of people, there are too many people that have opinions, and they're educated opinions too. They're very good opinions. They're very precise. They're very, in tune with technology. They understand how it works. They understand what technology is better. But I'm going to tell you people something else if you're interested in what I have to say on this. And it does not fucking matter. It doesn't matter if something's better than Solana. It doesn't matter if something is better than Ethereum. They have been chosen. They decide what is good and what is going to be incorporated based on a multitude of factors, not just the technology. They decide this stuff. Even if something's better, if this is too far gone, they'd put all this money in, $1 billion in research and development and whatever, legal structures and all this kissing ass of the SEC and all this legwork. They're not turning around and going back. They might integrate the other one 2 years later, and over time it slowly passes it maybe in technology. But it does not matter what you think about these assets. If the SEC has deemed them acceptable to put an ETF under, or if BlackRock's deciding that they're going to put these assets on their balance sheet, that is them deciding that they see a place for this. This isn't a game for them like speculating on meme shit coins on Solana. They don't give a shit about that. Maybe so you get some insiders doing some stuff based on what, they have knowledge of what BlackRock's going to do, that work there. Who cares? Whatever. That's all part of it. You can bitch about that too. It ain't going to change nothing. But so I want to say that because I see a lot of people complaining ETH's too slow. Solana this, Solana that. It had, Sam Bankman-Fried on top of it when it was bad, and he was the main contributor to a lot of it. But it doesn't matter. They see value there, and that's who decided whether gold or fucking tulips are going to take off back in the day, right? It doesn't matter what you think. It matters what they decide. And it's not always this too. I hear this too. The best technology wins. No, I would love the best technology to win, but no, it certainly does not. There's some technology that's amazing and great, but it's over-engineered and super useful, but it's not cheap, right? So they can't develop that technology and and make it for mass adoption. No, there's the best technology does not always win. A lot of times it's the first mover.
When I look at that, I look at case studies into just straight up marketing.
Yeah.
Right? You have venture capitalists or angel investors that have spent a lot of money at the base level for these. And this isn't just crypto. This is all across the board. This is what, unfortunately, most of capitalism is built on, but this is part of what it is, a free market. So the most key example that I can think of at this very moment in current events is, I'm going to veer off subject quickly to the WNBA. I want you to think about within the last year how much you've seen the WNBA in any capacity. You don't even have to be on social media a lot to have seen any of it. You've seen Caitlin Clark at least once or 50 times if you are on social media. Nike's investment into her was substantial. I think it was $12 million or $17 million. Huge.
It was a great step for women after the Bud Light fiasco last year. They really capitalized on that.
Listen, I am not knocking it. We had the saying in NFTs, it's worth whatever somebody's willing to pay. And Nike said she's worth this much.
Mm-hmm.
But what's insane to me is I had put this out, I think on both platforms. I put it on my Facebook personally too, because I wanted other people to see a masterclass and Nike going to put on for marketing. I just said, y'all are going to see a masterclass from Nike after spending $17 million in this investment. That girls everywhere. The WNBA is everywhere. That sport in itself is growing rapidly. So I want to now pivot back over into our world and twisting things a little bit, going into the best technology does not get the flowers all the time. You've got I'm not going to name names just for sake of just running this through. You have really good tech that is not taking off, but you have a chain that takes maintenance breaks once a month or twice a month. You have chains that are known to run massive fraudulent activities on. You have chains that are harboring celebrity pond scum activities, yet you look where the volume is, and that's where every bit of it is. Yep. So you then look at, again, from our last segment, the question of why are all these influencers here in one?
It's not, people are pie graphs. There's going to be several reasons for it. Obviously, they're going to find it somewhat unique and fun too, and maybe they want to get involved, and maybe it's exciting to them in a way that, because it is often compared to Amazon and the .com bubble, and maybe they want to kind of find the investments that do perform the best. And I'm not sure what actual financial advisors out there are advising for their people to do, but I'm pretty sure these people have them. But there are some things that are going to be globally adopted and will perform very well. So their motives, I think, are more than one. But back to you, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Let's pivot off of here. Somebody was talking about being able to identify a losing project and one that's not necessarily like, oh my God, this is a blatant rug pull. I need to just pull my money out, right? Or I'm just going to keep the risk of leaving it in there. At what point, when you're looking at a project, and let's say you've held more than 6 months, so you've had this one for a while, you've believed in it at one point, that it was going to do some numbers, and whether it's, I don't know, price action that's burned you out, or at what point do you really start looking at things and being like, okay, is this going to be one of those ones that isn't part of the rising tides lift the boats when the cycle comes? Because we know that shit's not happening this time. So it's going to be select. How are you setting up your strategy to kind of help identify and cutting some of these losers that you don't think will perform well this run, this cycle?
Well, let's start with the way you're doing it.
Personally, I am trying to stay in the know with some of the niches that are in. For me, the categories that I'm personally investing in are really limited. So I've actually started buying a little more Bitcoin just to hedge volatility a little bit less. I did some real world asset stuff, some RWA. I'll name drop Numa. I bought a little bit of Numa, but I really like AI until something happens more significantly with NVIDIA and shows that, proves that NVIDIA is a bubble. I think that crypto has a very, very large gap to catch up in that AI, but the market just has not allowed for it yet, with kind of the constant barrage of sales on between the Mount Gox shit and Germany selling and whatever other sell pressure we're getting.
And the other reason is because real projects that have tried to be artificial intelligence and crypto just don't have the long-term liquidity flow that they need.
Yes.
That is it. And the VCs that have come up with good ideas that maybe could have done very, very well have all just, the way they run their tokenomics and emissions and their projects, they haven't been there. And that's why I think another reason why you see ETFs starting, so if there's an ETF on something, just like gold, just like silver, they will control the price. I mean, to a degree, like I think Bitcoin's all, now that it has an ETF, I think it's like investing in it sort of in the beginning, where you can count on this asset doing some multiples over the next decade or 2 decades. So I think it's a great investment for people right now. Just my personal opinion on it. I just don't. They're going to have to show returns, and it's going to be used for a lot more things. And it's going to go through a bunch of market cycles that correlate with TradFi.
I think too, one of the biggest things that I had to learn coming into this cycle was that obviously not everything is going to run like we had seen in the past from the dilution. Having to kind of pivot away from that a little bit. You look at like some of the newer stuff that's come out, like the Apustasia or just some of these other memes that when they rip, man. They go on top of that. You have such a strong community with a coin like that if you're not seeing real strength in community or strength in volume coming through, for me, that's it. Like, unless there is like a planned community takeover, then you're really kind of just hoping, right. For me, I would say, look, unless there's been proven amounts, like there's an in-house market maker that when the market comes back is going to make sure that people are going to want to get excited about that. And the only way to get people excited about that is to slam a ton of money on the chart, get some big green candles up. And unless you've got the money for if that doesn't work out, to say, that was a really shitty gamble that we played there, it's not going to happen. So for me, in those 3 categories, really, obviously not Bitcoin so much, but like RWA and like the AI, if I'm in projects and their volume is dead and I'm not seeing communication from the team with like true game plans of things, I'm very quickly moving out of it.
And I think the trick is finding it when it's slowing down. When a team's roadmap catalysts haven't made a difference, like they've dropped like 3 of them that are big, and you say to yourself, well, they got 4 more roadmap catalysts, but they're not as big, and the PA hasn't really ticked up, and you have a few big influencers on that have tried to bring in, the multiple 6-figure influencers, and they've been unsuccessful. And you just, You just know, and it takes time to know these things. But as soon as they see volume gone, catalyst not working, if the team is, deciding that their catalysts are the ones that people are desensitized to, or if they're reaching for change. Like, remember when teams used to try and have, they used to try and spin off on an NFT to try and keep their project alive. I see something like that, not an NFT specifically anymore, but hey, we're gonna develop this along with it, and and it's never been part of the plan. They're just trying to keep their project alive. It's dead, and it really sucks because it's becoming harder and harder to find these projects that do well. There are some right now I think will do well, and there's also this to consider. Right now, on-chain liquidity, it's been terrible since early March, non-existent almost. So there are great projects out there. I was looking at AI things today that are just bottom. You can see them on a double bottom actually, and they look good. They look good for bounces. Not sure how far they'll go, especially with NVIDIA being somewhat topped in the traditional finance and rotation right now, which is actually really healthy and great. But I still think they have a long ways to go over this bull run. But when I see, so volumes drying up, TG is quieter, the TA says a lot. Once you're breaking certain structures, and you go down from $10 million of volume significantly to 1 million a day to 200K a day. I mean, that's really telling. You got to get out, because a lot of people say save moon bags and hold moon bags, but I don't do that often. I'll be honest with you. I don't. I cut my losses and I take that money and I put into things that are going to make me money. I'm so far past the point, because I've been here so many years now, where I look at it like, oh, cool, and I go right back to what I'm doing. There's zero cope involved for me anymore, because I've taken that money and generally made something. And so when you get to a certain stage here, you see people like, oh, I wish you would have held that. They're like, well, no, because I made money over here and here and here and here. I'm good, because I was pivoting. And a lot of people get stuck in, they're like, their feet are in concrete. They're afraid to make a decision. They're afraid to execute. They see all this, they know internally, inside, right in their chest and their stomach, they know when something's over. But they grasp to these narratives or hopes or kind of things, and it's because they actually probably spent some time researching it and they made a real good executive decision on it, and it was a good project and it was good technology. And so I totally validate their research and how they came to that conclusion. But in the end, and they're afraid to go through that routine again and try it again and again and again. That's what you have to do. That's how you refine your craft. But that's what you have to do. And there are people that do great DD and they execute well, and they just get stuck in these positions because they've told themselves that it's going to be great. Well, if you don't see new big influencers come on, volume's drying up, you've showed it enough times, people are leaving the TG, it's not like mass adoptable. There's no meaningful partnerships being formed. There's a few exceptions to that. Some things are bigger than partnerships, but when to get out, guys. Nothing. I made this statement in the TG the other week, and I said, it's a small one. I said, guys, they're talking about things going up again. I said, I haven't seen really things get up from the bottom. I remember specifically mid-2022 was when things that were great and good would just stay dead. They would bounce a few times. The teams would try their asses off. They would work hard and produce something meaningful that would bring in more liquidity. And it just got sold off again. And those things they're long gone. And that's what you're seeing here still. And it's even worse now with the dilution. That's why people are on memes. Well, people are part of memes because they don't have to do any research. They see the green candles. There's community leaders that are on them that know how to hold, actually. So there's a ton of the one thing FA sort of lacks in a way is really, really big account long-term holders that are always chilling it. You have them to a degree, but memes seem to have leadership, a little bit better leadership than a lot of FA, to be honest. I see that a lot.
A lot of crypto projects are managed by people that are very smart, but with being very smart comes some ignorance. And on top of ignorance comes not being able to admit when you need to pass things off, when you don't understand how to run a project, what certain things need. And that's a real disconnect. I could list some examples there, but my timeline would fucking have a frenzy.
It's just not going to end. Nothing's going to go the way you think it's going to go, or the way you want it to go. You're not going to force the industry to go the way you want it to go. You have to flow with it, and that's it. And I learned that the hard way, and I know you did too. I mean, we did well, but we learned some lessons, along the way.
So I am throwing up here shared screen. We are looking at the Bitcoin daily chart. We have the rainbow trends on here showing us some really cool stuff. So for those that aren't not aware, green is a general bullish candle. Red is a general bearish candle. Orange and yellow and white starts to show a degree at which things are oversold in a similar way that RSI would. And then vice versa, green to blue to purple to pink is when you should be selling. It is overextended, overbought. So while I have you, I want to look at this and I want to go over what we are looking at here, because I'm going to be honest with you. It looks bearish as fuck from a macro trader standpoint. However,
well, you're at the pivot, so now or never, but go ahead.
It is a now or never. And my more, bullish side says we have a lot of really strong catalysts coming up for crypto as a whole. I would like to see the dollar drop a little bit, but I think that we are setting up for a very, very strong bear trap, if I'm being honest. It looks very, very enticing for people to want to short sell. I would not be at all surprised to see people thinking that we're going to come back. 34K is a little low.
Yeah,
here.
It is.
It is extremely low. I want to say that the coal dude was calling for 44 for people wanting to burn his fucking house down.
Well, 48 has a lot more structure to me than a lot of things. It's a very large POC. But even if it went to 48, I still wouldn't be long-term bearish.
I wouldn't be either.
Like there is a lot of confusion on what's going to happen after the election. It sounds so fucking dumb. I don't talk about elections. But there is, maybe they have maybe these ETFs and, the TradFi institutions, they have a certain direction they're going to take depending on who's elected and how they're going to onboard people. And maybe they're, it might be going lower. If it did go lower, I'd assume that they're going to really onboard a lot of clients during that time frame.
Sure.
Right. These financial institutions. But yeah, go ahead.
I'm just looking at things all across.
Yeah, it looks like shit. The run post-halving, it always does this, of course. You can go a little bit lower even. But I see your point here because it ran pre-post-halving to all-time highs and it's barely above them. Now it's drifting kind of at our previous, it's kind of ranging there, which in hindsight may be a really great consolidation range. But
yeah, and with this too, anybody watching this, they see this up there and they think I'm actually thinking this is going to go anywhere near 260K. I'm not that bullish.
I do, but it will be 10 years.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I'm personally.
That's why I say throw your money in. Like if you really want to retire, they had that $5 coffee rule, right? And all these shit. $5 a day you put in there. If people put their money into Bitcoin and Ethereum now, and they have like a 20-year plan, if you're young, you'll retire a millionaire for sure.
I'm still waiting. We have not gotten, if you look at previous history, we've not gotten
nothing like that
strong yet. And this is, I am really basing a lot of my moves in accumulation periods in this. The last 2 times we've gotten red, Bubba, I've bought in some Bitcoin. So because I had no money otherwise, back here, I had no money. Bear market took it all.
We should talk about capital building next stream.
I'm good with that for sure. On here, I really wanted to show I stretched it out now, but I wanted to show the amount of days was 397 days from the sell-off that we had seen in COVID 2020 to not technically the peak top, but the first real leg up for Bitcoin on the last one. So I thought it was really interesting that at 390 something days, we are not anywhere, we've been in a very long uptrend in, this time when all things are considered. We're looking at, what is that? Almost 590 something days. So
86. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is interesting to say the least. And it's nice because we've both agreed on this. And this is kind of going to be the last point before we roll out here. We've both kind of agreed on this, that we would like to see kind of a slower grind up so we have a stronger year in 2025. And it at least establishes a stronger case to have a stronger year in 2025.
Yeah, I agree.
I was afraid that we were going to see that really, really big pump up. I was afraid we were going to get maybe some of this happening already. And so I'm actually pretty glad that we haven't seen that, because it's given me the opportunity to buy this. But I do, CF, I do believe that we're coming up to those days very, pretty damn soon, the closer we get to November.
I agree. I just think it's gonna be a little bit more extended. And let's talk about regulations and how they affect crypto for the good reasons. And I mean liquidity inflow, next stream, take profits, capital building, maybe liquidity inflow, because regulations will help stop, all that liquidity from leaving the space in various ways. People fucking hate it. I get it, man. You're at the point now where nothing can fucking move because there's 1,000 tokens fucking launched a day.
I think that the last real bull run comes when regulations happen. Actually, I don't
I
think
do.
that
It's gonna tighten it up, and everyone's gonna have to redirect their liquidity into fucking better things.
you
And
had
that's
better have your shit together.
yeah,
That's for sure.
yeah.
So, see, I appreciate you getting on here
All
doing
right,
some
man.
hot takes.
Talk soon.
See you, bro.